My name is Mason. I'm 35, and until just a few weeks ago, I thought I had the kind of life people dream about. A loving wife named Dana, two amazing kids, and a quiet home in the suburbs where everything seemed to run smoothly. Or at least, that's what I let myself believe. Dana and I had one of those college love stories that people like to post about. Fast, exciting, and full of hope. We tied the knot right after graduation, bought our first house before either of us turned 30, and built what looked like a picture-perfect life. She's always been the social one, a real go-getter in the real estate business. Me? I've worked in information technology since college. Quiet job, quiet guy. She'd often be out late for work-related events, but I never questioned it. I trusted her with all I had. Maybe I shouldn't have. A couple of years back, we hired a babysitter named Tyler. He was a 23-year-old college student, well-spoken, respectful, and surprisingly good with kids. Dana had met him through a client and pushed to bring him on board. I didn't see a reason to say no at the time. Then, a few months ago, things started feeling off. Dana became distant, always checking her phone, texting nonstop, disappearing for longer stretches in the evening, and coming home with a hint of alcohol on her breath, something she never used to do. Our intimacy flatlined. Whenever I tried to connect, she'd dodge me with the usual lines. Too tired, too busy, or she'd just brush me off entirely. I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe she was just stressed. Maybe this was a phase. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Last Friday was when my whole world tipped over. I'd wrapped up a big project early at work, so I decided to surprise Dana and the kids. Thought maybe we'd order a pizza, have a movie night, something simple and nice. When I pulled into the driveway, Tyler's car was parked right out front. Not that unusual on its own, but the house was dead quiet. I walked through the door, calling out for them. No answer. Then I heard muffled voices and laughing coming from the living room. I crept closer, heart pounding. When I peeked around the corner, there they were, Dana and Tyler, sitting too close, touching, and kissing like teenagers. It wasn't some peck on the cheek. It was full-on, passionate, and totally soul-crushing. I stood there frozen, too shocked to move. I fumbled for my phone and recorded a few seconds, just enough to prove to myself I wasn't going crazy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed with my back to her, pretending to be asleep while she climbed into bed like nothing had happened. My head was spinning. How long had this been going on? What had I done to deserve this? What the hell do I do now? I didn't confront her right away. I needed to be sure. Needed to see the full picture before making any moves. So I kept quiet and played the role of clueless husband. It was brutal. Over the next few days, I paid attention to every little thing she did. Every text. Every time she smiled at her phone. Every excuse to stay late. She was slick, always deleting messages and clearing call logs. But I work in tech. I know my way around a phone. I installed monitoring software that gave me access to everything. Texts, call records, even her location. It didn't take long to confirm my worst fears. Dana and Tyler were deep into their little affair. There were dozens of texts, some romantic, some disgusting. They joked about how clueless I was. They bragged about how exciting it was to sneak around. The woman I'd shared my life with had turned into someone I didn't even recognize. I kept collecting everything, screenshots, call logs, recordings. I even started looking into Tyler's background and found some minor legal trouble in his past. Nothing major, but enough to raise red flags if you knew where to look. And I wasn't just gathering this for the sake of revenge. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the gut punch of knowing someone you trust has been living a double life. While Dana kept sneaking off under the guise of late showings, I was planting small surveillance cameras around the house, mainly in the living room and bedroom. I felt like a damn spy in my own home. The final straw came the following week. Dana told me she'd be working late again. I told her I'd be taking the kids to visit my folks for the weekend. She was a little too relieved, and that told me all I needed to know. Instead of going to my parents', I parked just down the block. Sure enough, Tyler rolled up not long after I left. I stayed calm, but inside I was boiling. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I had everything in place. Now it was time to see how far they'd really go. I never thought I'd find myself doing something like this, but desperate times make a man do things he never imagined. Sitting there, watching the footage through my phone, I felt like I was trapped in a slow-motion nightmare. Every laugh, every touch, every time they moved a little closer, It all felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Then they disappeared into the bedroom. That nearly broke me. I hit record and made sure everything was saved in a few different places, cloud, drives, even an old laptop I hadn't used in years. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was angry, furious. I didn't say a word to Dana that night. She came home early the next morning like nothing had happened. No guilt, no hesitation. I had to dig deep to stay quiet, but I knew if I blew up now, she'd just lie or twist it around. I wasn't going to let her slip away from the mess she made. So, I kept watching, kept collecting. Every time she and Tyler got together, I had it on video or audio. Messages, calls, every bit of it. The more I saw, the less I recognized the woman I married. I had made up my mind. This wasn't going to be a simple breakup. No, she was going to understand exactly what betrayal looks like from the other side. A week later, Dana told me she had a work trip out of town. She'd be gone for a few days. That was the moment I had been waiting for. I told work I had a family emergency, which wasn't far from the truth, and stayed home. I spent the day printing everything, organizing messages, labeling files, building a clean, damning case. When she got back, I acted like everything was fine. We had dinner, watched a show, smiled for the kids. I felt like a ghost in my own home. And then came the day. I waited until the kids were at school. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table and cued the footage. She walked in, all casual and sweet, setting her purse down and asking about my day. "Sit down, Dana," I said. She looked a little thrown off, but sat anyway. Then I hit play. Her face went from confused to terrified in seconds. What is this?" she stammered. "This," I said, pointing at the screen, "is the end of our marriage." Tears came fast. She reached for my hand, and I pulled away. "I can explain." "No," I snapped, standing up. "You don't get to explain anything. I've seen everything. I know every message, every lie, every sick joke you shared behind my back." She broke down crying. I felt nothing. I had trusted her, loved her, given her everything. "I'm done, Dana. I talked to a lawyer already. I'm filing for divorce." Her sobs grew louder. She started begging. "Please, Jake, let's talk. Think about the kids." I glared at her. "You should have thought about the kids before sleeping with the babysitter. Now pack your things and leave." I stepped outside, needing air. I didn't feel better, just numb. But I knew this was the first step in getting my life back. Now it was Tyler's turn. I'd already dug into his background. Not much, but enough. A few run-ins with the law. Nothing serious. Still, it gave me a window. I had the whole plan laid out. I drove to his apartment that night, rage burning under my skin. He opened the door and the blood drained from his face the second he saw me. "Jake, what?" "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him. He didn't stop me. I sat down and looked him dead in the eyes. "Sit." He obeyed, shaky. "Look, man, I didn't mean to." "Shut up," I said. "You didn't mean to? You've been screwing my wife for months. Don't insult me with fake guilt." I tossed a USB stick onto the table. Everything's on there. Messages, calls, videos. And I've got it saved in more places than you can imagine. If you don't do exactly what I say, I'll send it to your school, your professors, every job you ever apply to. You'll be done. He picked up the drive, eyes wide. "What do you want?" he croaked. "First," I said, "you quit. No more babysitting. You disappear from our lives completely." He nodded. "Second, you write a letter to my kids. One day they'll understand what happened. You owe them an apology." More nodding. "Third," I continued, "you go to your college and tell them what you did. Come clean. If you don't, I will." He was pale as a sheet but didn't fight it. "I understand," he whispered. I stood up and leaned in close. "I swear to God, Tyler, if you contact Dana again, or even drive past my street, I will bury you with this. Understand?" He swallowed hard. "I got it." The next day, he emailed me a copy of the letter, full of remorse, as if that changed anything. He also resigned and admitted to misconduct at his school. It was a start. Nothing would undo what they did, but at least I had reclaimed some control. Then came the final step. I filed the divorce papers and served Dana myself. She was sipping her coffee when I handed them over. "Jake, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm divorcing you. On grounds of infidelity." She begged, pleaded, cried. "There's nothing left to fix," I told her. "You burned this down." Over the next few weeks, we worked out the custody details through lawyers. The kids would stay with her during the week, and I'd get weekends. We'd sell the house and split what was left. One day, while I was packing my things, my daughter walked in. She's only 7, but smart. "Daddy, why are you leaving?" I knelt down. "Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups have problems they just can't fix. But your mom and I love you very much, and we always will." She hugged me tight. I held her like I'd never let go. That hug told me everything I needed to know. This fight wasn't just about justice. It was about protecting my kids from a life built on lies. When Dana and I finally signed the divorce papers, it felt like signing a death certificate. But it also felt like a second chance. She looked up with tears in her eyes and tried to speak. "Jake." But I just shook my head. "Save it." I knew I'd never hear the words I really wanted from Sarah. As we sat in that conference room signing the final papers, she whispered, "I know you'll never forgive me, but I hope someday you can find peace." I just nodded. There wasn't anything left to say. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. What I felt was a deep, empty kind of sadness, the kind that settles in your bones. As I drove away, I let a few tears fall, not for her, but for what we had once dreamed of. That life was gone now, just ashes and memories. But somewhere underneath all the pain, I felt a flicker of hope. I had survived the worst part. Now, it was time to rebuild, brick by brick. I had 2 amazing kids and a future worth fighting for. But just when I thought it was over, Sarah found new ways to drag me back into her mess. It started a few weeks later. Out of nowhere, I got a call from my boss. Someone had reported me anonymously for misconduct at work. The allegations were nonsense, but it triggered a full-blown investigation. It was humiliating, being called into meetings, having my coworkers look at me sideways. Thankfully, my team knew me well enough not to buy into it. Still, it shook me. Then Sarah started messing with the kids. I'd pick them up and hear little things, subtle at first. Then one night, Emily, my daughter, looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes and asked, "Daddy, did you make Mommy cry because you don't love her anymore?" I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I held her close. "Emily, sweetie, I love you and your brother more than anything. Grown-ups sometimes have problems they can't fix, but that doesn't mean I ever stopped loving you. Or your mom." But no matter how gently I explained things, the damage was already there. Sarah was poisoning them against me. It didn't stop there. She dragged me back to court, claiming she deserved more money, even after we had signed an agreement. The judge, to his credit, saw right through her and threw the motion out. But every legal battle cost time, money, and emotional fuel I barely had left. Then came the worst of it. One evening, I opened the door to find a caseworker from Child Protective Services standing on my porch. Sarah had reported me, said I was unfit to be a father. I was floored, angry, afraid. They talked to the kids, to my neighbors, even went through my house. It felt like my entire life was being put under a microscope. I couldn't believe she'd go this far just to punish me. That night, I sat down with my lawyer, Laura. She had been with me through every step. "How do I make this stop?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Laura leaned forward. "You need to document everything, Jake. Every message, every lie, every threat. If we're going to protect your kids and your reputation, we need a solid case." I started keeping records. I wrote down every shady thing Sarah did, every comment she made to the kids, and every incident that crossed a line. I also installed security cameras outside and inside my home. I wasn't taking any chances. Then one day, Emily came back from her mom's with a folded note. "Mommy said to give this to you." I opened it, and my blood boiled. It was a threat, plain and simple. Sarah said she'd take the kids from me for good, that she'd ruin my life in court and destroy what little peace I had left. That was the final straw. With Laura's help, I filed for a restraining order. We showed the judge everything, the false reports, the manipulation, the threats. It was overwhelming, and it worked. The judge granted the order, limiting Sarah's contact to supervised visits only. It was a hard-earned win, but it brought me some much-needed peace. After that, I sat Emily and Jason down and had a talk. I kept it simple. Both your mom and I love you. But sometimes, to keep people safe and happy, hard decisions have to be made. Things slowly started to settle. The kids began adjusting to our new normal. I got back into work, started seeing a therapist, and began putting my life back together piece by piece. One night, as I was tucking Emily in, she looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, are things going to be okay now?" I smiled and brushed her hair from her eyes. Yeah, sweetheart. Things are going to be just fine. But life wasn't done with me yet. It was a Tuesday morning. Regular day. I was working on a client's system when my phone rang. Mr. Miller, this is Principal Thompson. We need you to come to the school immediately. There's been an incident with Emily. My stomach dropped. Is she hurt? She's not physically injured, but it's serious. Please come as soon as you can. I got there in record time. When I arrived, Emily was sitting in the office, her face blotchy from crying. A woman I didn't recognize sat beside her. Mr. Miller, this is Ms. Daniels from Child Protective Services, the principal explained. Emily shared something today that we had to report. I knelt in front of my daughter. It's okay, sweetheart. Just tell me what's going on. She sniffled and whispered, I didn't mean to get in trouble. I just said what Mommy told me to say. What did she tell you, Emily? She hesitated, then said, Mommy said, if you don't let her see us more, she'll tell people you hit us. The room went silent. Ms. Daniels looked at me. We'll be launching a full investigation. I nodded slowly, heart pounding. Do whatever you need. I just want my kids to be safe. Days passed. Sarah was interviewed and, of course, denied everything. She spun her usual tale, making herself out to be the victim. But Emily's statement was strong. Clear. It didn't take a genius to see who was manipulating who. And then out of nowhere, I got a call from Jenna, Sarah's sister. We'd always been polite but distant. So her reaching out caught me off guard. Jake, can we meet? She asked. Sure. What's going on? We met at a local diner. She didn't waste time. I think you need to know what Sarah's been doing. I've seen her behavior lately. It's not right. She went on to tell me she had seen text messages Sarah had sent talking about her plans. Plans to twist the kids against me. Plans to lie in court. Plans to take everything. She's not well, Jake. And you deserve to know. It wasn't easy to hear. But it was the truth I needed. And I wasn't going to let Sarah drag our kids through another mess. I can't just sit back and watch her destroy you, Jake, Jenna said, her voice thick with emotion. And I won't let her keep dragging the kids through this either. I'll testify if I have to. That moment changed everything. Jenna's support, along with the mountain of evidence we had from the investigations, shattered whatever credibility Sarah had left. The judge granted me full custody. Sarah's visits were restricted and supervised. She was furious, but she had no leg to stand on anymore. Her own actions had finally caught up with her. It was a bittersweet win. I was relieved my kids were finally safe. But it was also gut-wrenching to realize just how far the woman I once loved had fallen. All that deceit, all that bitterness, it had turned her into someone I barely recognized. Life slowly found its rhythm again. Emily and Jason started to thrive under the stable home I worked hard to give them. Jenna stuck around too, helping out and becoming someone I genuinely came to count on. One night, sitting around the dinner table, Emily looked up at me with her big smile and said, Daddy, I'm happy we're all together. You're the best daddy in the world. I barely held it together. I pulled her in close. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you both more than anything. Months passed. The kids adjusted. My life started to feel normal again. I even dipped my toes back into dating slowly, cautiously, not rushing anything. For once, I was optimistic. Then, just when I thought things had finally settled down, life decided to throw me one more punch. It was a Saturday morning, crisp and cool. I finally got around to cleaning out the garage, a job I'd been putting off for too long. I figured I'd toss out the junk, get things organized, maybe make some room for a little workshop. Tucked away in a dusty corner, behind some old holiday boxes, I found a small, beat-up shoebox. Inside were letters. Old photographs. At first glance, it looked like a collection of old memories between me and Sarah. I smiled at the first couple, sweet notes we'd written to each other when we were just dating. But deeper in the box, the letters took a turn. There was a name I didn't recognize at first, Mark. And the dates? They lined up with the time our marriage started going south. My hands started shaking as I read. These weren't just friendly letters. Mark's words were full of passion, promises, and plans. Plans to run away together. To start a new life. One letter even mentioned a romantic trip they were planning to celebrate their new beginning. It hit me like a freight train. Sarah had been cheating on me with Mark long before Alex ever entered the picture. Alex wasn't the start of it. He was just the most convenient option when things with Mark fell apart. At the bottom of the box, I found a small velvet pouch. Inside it was a diamond ring. An engagement ring. I could barely breathe. She wasn't just cheating. She had been planning to marry this man. to leave me and our kids behind like we were just some failed chapter in her story. That afternoon, I called Sarah and told her to come by. I said we needed to talk about something important. When she arrived, she could tell something was up. Her eyes scanned the room nervously. Jake, what's going on? I walked over to the kitchen table and laid out the letters and the ring. I found these in the garage, I said, voice even but cold. Care to explain? She went pale and slowly sat down. Her hands trembled as she picked up one of the letters. I don't know what to say, she whispered. How about the truth for once? I said. You weren't just unfaithful with Alex. You were planning an entirely new life with this guy. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just waiting for the right moment to disappear? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, she admitted. It was with Mark. It started years ago. I was unhappy, Jake. I felt stuck. But it didn't work out with him. And by the time I realized what I had done, it was already too late. I stared at her, struggling to keep my voice from cracking. You made me believe I was the problem. You let me think I was failing you. The whole time, you were planning your escape. I'm sorry, Jake, she cried. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I never wanted to hurt you. It's too late for sorry, I replied. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I felt free. I've moved on. I've got the kids. I've got a new life. You're going to have to live with what you did. She nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I understand. I just hope one day, maybe you'll forgive me. I don't know if I will, I said honestly. But I do know one thing. I'm not going to let this define me anymore. I've got too much to live for. As she left, I stood in the doorway watching her go. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. That shoebox might have been the last bit of truth I needed to finally let go. Sarah had fooled me for years, but she could not break me. I had survived the storm. And now, finally, the sky was clear.